Proposition 209 passed in the mid 90s in California. What the fuck was Proposition 209? It banned affirmative action and taking race into consideration at all for any applications for the CSU and UC system. Period, point blank. Doesn't seem like very liberal California would do something like that.
Because California is not as liberal as people think it is. The cities are liberal. LA and San Francisco is liberal. The rest of California is God, guns, and glory. So
exactly. And this
people need to get familiar with the landscape of California.
Yeah, this passed with the proposition, not a state assembly, state senate thing. Everyone got to vote on it, and also it happened like 2 years after the Rodney King riots. Take that into consideration.
So yes.
And furthermore, that's indirectly how T and I met because of Prop 209. That's why we have Experience Berkeley as a nonprofit that offers free consulting to students who want to apply to the UC system. The UC Berkeley offers consulting to the people that are offering consulting to these students for free. And they set up that relationship between the program and the admissions reps because we got rid of Prop 209. What else happened because we got rid of Prop 209? We ended our legacy program at Berkeley. You can't get into Berkeley as a legacy as you can, going all the way back to the beginning of the conversation, as you can at these private schools, Harvard, Stanford, Yale, etc. We have no legacy program. No matter how much money you give, you can't just get in like that.
I disagree with you. I know people who've gotten in because their families were in.
Unofficially.
I don't think it's the prevalent yet, but it is unofficial.
Yeah. There's nowhere that it says on your acceptance or on your application, we mark this person as a legacy, which is one of the reasons why Operation Varsity Blues did have a presence at Berkeley. They mostly focus on USC in Operation Varsity Blues, but I know people who definitely should have been part of that, who were on the track team throwing a javelin or some shit and then never went to a practice.
That's shameful. That's shameful, and that's bullshit. A little background on Prop 209. So about 25 years ago, one of the most prominent supporters of Proposition 209 is a Black businessman named Ward Connerly. And his perspective on it. Yeah, his perspective on it was similar to that of Clarence Thomas. He felt that affirmative action is outdated and unfair for everyone, specifically for students of color, because he felt that it reinforced ideas of inferiority. So the opponents of affirmative action aggressively challenged the race-based preference in the Supreme Court.
Okay.
Trump's Department of Justice, by the way, accused Yale of illegal admissions discrimination against white and Asian American students. In California, the effect of Proposition 209 on the state's elite universities was immediate. Black and Hispanic enrollment at Berkeley and UCLA plummeted, and legal challenges to the policy were completely beaten back, and a generation of students have since come and gone, with diversity numbers seemingly going down.
Yep. At Berkeley, we're lucky to get 2.5% Black. If we get north of 3, it's a miracle. And that's including the athletes.
Yeah, there was a study done, and it said that Black and Hispanic enrollment declined across the entire UC system after Prop 209 took effect in 1998. Students who would have enrolled at the campuses before the ban attended less selective universities in the system. This, in turn, pushed out other Black and Hispanic students who moved down the ladder of selectivity. Those at the bottom lost their grip entirely and didn't get into the UC system at all.
Interesting. Yeah,
it is.
Well, I have seen other numbers that say, hey, because of this, right, it's not like there are fewer Black people just necessarily getting in. It's fewer that decide to attend. Why? The ones who get in also, they're the best of the best. And they also got into Harvard and MIT.
Right. And there's more private funding and scholarships. So for that, you might as well apply to the private schools because you're going to get better funding. You may get a full ride. It's harder to get a full ride at a publicly funded college.
Right.
Even one as renowned as Berkeley, which is shameful.
Yeah. But I will say this, which everyone needs to know, and the high school counselors need to do a better job of explaining to people. If you get any form of FAFSA from Berkeley, you at least still get a scholarship for your tuition. Unfortunately, Bay Area room and board still costs a lot, but you get a full tuition scholarship from Berkeley if you're getting the full amount of money in your Pell Grant and FAFSA and whatnot.
Right, and I believe you have to have a certain grade point average, right?
I think some of it is conditional. There's additional funding as well.
Right. There's some conditional education, I think grade point average, residency, and
so you got to be a California citizen.
Got to be California resident, and the level that you qualify for on your financial aid form, shortened, abbreviated to what you said, which is the FAFSA.
Yeah, and we can do a whole other episode, maybe around the time when people are applying to schools, about how to hack this system, because again, you and I are trained on this because we used to give free consulting to people for this, and I wish nonprofits had a marketing budget because people need to know about these programs.
Yeah, and a lot of it we didn't learn about till we were practically graduating out of school. And had I known then what I know now, I would have made different decisions. I would have stayed abroad longer. I would have applied to externships. I would have applied to fellowships. I mean, there were some things I didn't find out about till we were at graduation, and people got on stage and were getting awards for fellowships and externships. And I was like, I've never even heard of these programs. How are they winning awards?
Oh yeah, how many?
There was a lot I didn't know.
How many people do we know that did law fellows or PPIA? And it's like, you find out about that after school. It's like, oh, that's a thing? PPI, what? Like our friend Jesse, he did law fellows and PPIA, right? PPIA is a public policy thing. All right, before I let you go, what is your opinion on Berkeley getting rid of the legacy program as a means of trying to make up for the fact that they got rid of affirmative action? And let's wrap it up with an idea for affirmative action policy in the future, because I do have an idea that I would love to bounce off of you. So first thing, getting rid of the legacy program, Berkeley doing that when they got rid of affirmative action. What are your thoughts?
Performative. It doesn't matter. They're going to get in the elite. Because the elite don't get in through admissions. They get in through the network. They get in through their relationships. The paperwork is just semantics.
Yeah, some of that old California money, people with last names like
people forget about that old California money, that Gold West money. Like people forget that there is a ton of old money in California, especially in Northern California, actually.
Yes. Who do you think paid to build this fucked up ass city out here with all these hills and weird weather and shit? It makes no sense for this city to be that dope, except for the fact that you could build a city here, and you need, the Golden Gate Bridge is named for like a golden gate for trade with the Orient. It's the one way you can get ships and shit docked away from fucking storms, but still have them go to the Orient, in heavy air quotes. Obviously, that's not a PC term, but you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Needed a bunch of money for that, right? And we can do a whole other episode about like the gold rush and shit, because kids who grow up here are like, that's part of their grade school shit. Just like I had to take Texas history and learn about the Alamo and shit. They had to learn.
I took California history at some point, or it was immersed into a history class that I took at Berkeley. So we can get into that, the gold rush, and how it's set up generational wealth for old money from people transitioning from the South and the Midwest and all over, coming up to the gold rush, and how that is part of that, legacy funding. Again, that's part of that white advantage, right? Again, not a privilege. These people came out here and they suffered like dogs trying to get that gold out of the ground. People died. We're not disputing that. People got sick. People, fell to their death trying to dig out gold. Nobody's disputing that any of that happened. There was an advantage. You had access that people of color did not have for that gold. And
y'all rioted when they started letting Asians work on the damn railroads and shit, because you thought they were going to replace you, and they were willing to work for less. Like, let's
which gave birth to the Chinese Exclusion Act.
Exactly. They literally passed a fucking federal law to be like
that excluded Asians from coming here, and excluded mostly women from coming here as well.
Yeah, because y'all are going to pop out babies and stuff. Real quick, one quick thing about the gold rush, but we should do a whole fucking talk about it. Just, I want to make sure that we're useful to our audience. Y'all, if you didn't know already, the people who made the most money from the gold rush weren't the people who found the doggone gold. It's the people who were selling shovels to all the niggas.
Right. And garbage
themselves-
bags. Right. And plastic bags to put it in.
Exactly. Who convinced themselves they were going to go the fuck up there and find some gold. Oh, there's gold up in them there hills. So that's a common business shorthand term, selling the shovels. Whenever people are talking about entrepreneurship, when we're talking about venture capital, and we're talking about an industry or a space where it's not going to come down to who does it best. It's just going to be a land rush in terms of a bunch of new startups who are all doing this one specific thing. So for example, being a crypto exchange, that was a land rush. So a bunch of VCs all funded anybody who was going to do a crypto exchange. Why? Selling the shovels. We're not selling you Bitcoin. We're not selling you crypto. We're helping you sell. Helping you buy and sell the crypto. Land rush, marketplace, selling the shovels. Before we wrap it up, I do want to come back to that affirmative action question and just bounce this off your head. We don't have to post this, but this is just a policy question. I feel like we should have affirmative action for socioeconomic status rather than race. What do you think about that?
You need to flush that out a little more for me so I know what you mean.
Basically, affirmative action based on poverty. If you're poor, you get affirmative action rather than based on race.
That's a possibility until people start splintering. Well, why are you poor? Is it poor because of laziness or poor because you don't have access to resources? That's why people are against the universal basic income.
I thought the idea of universal basic income was everyone gets it regardless of what their income was.
Everybody theoretically would get it, but the test trials that they've done has been with poor
people, yeah.
families, and they have found that they actually redistributed the money back into the economy more so than the wealthy do, who tend to hoard it. But it also, the opponents of it argue that it will encourage people to sort of stay home, similarly to what happened when people got COVID money.